And if you step this way, you'll see our Pokemon region exhibit. There are many beautiful lands here in the Pokemon world, but the number one best thing about all of them is all the Pokemon they have. Yep, that's right, Pokemon in every region. No exceptions, everyone. So let's just move along, there's nothing to see here, hey, you get back here! Okay, so maybe there are some regions that are a bit more sparse than others, but surely there are Pokemon in Orre, right? Wes, back me up here. Well, if you're not familiar with the game Pokemon Colosseum, and to a lesser extent Pokemon Raw XD, in these games, you play in a wholly unique region known as Orre or Orre, but I'm gonna call it Orre, because that makes more sense to me. While it's geographically very basic with only 4 unique landmarks, being the ocean, desert, mountain, and second mountain, which is actually a volcano, what really sets Orre apart from the rest of the Pokemon world is its startling lack of Pokemon. Pokemon have to be imported from other regions because there are no wild Pokemon found anywhere throughout it. It's not until 5 years later in the events of XD that they start to show up again, in places aptly named Pokespots. It even merits breaking news there. But why are they gone? And where did they go? And why are any of us here? Well, I can answer like one and a half, maybe, of those. The games never really touch on it, more than just acknowledging that it's a thing, but gameplay reasons aside, there has to be something that caused them all not to live there and then slowly start to show back up. So let's dive into these games and see what's going on. I've already given a brief intro on the region, but let's go a little more in depth on the background of it and the games so that we're all on the same page here. Before Colosseum starts, the Orre region, which is described as being very inhabitable, had been and still is dominated by 2 evil teams, Cypher and Snag'em. While both are separate groups, they started working together with Cypher pulling the strings. Their main goal, and I know this is gonna shock you, was to rule the world through Pokemon.
A sinister organization is using Pokemon to realize their plans for world domination.
Specifically, Shadow Pokemon. A special kind of mon that has its heart shut to love and like other emotions. A very early 2000s plot. And they got pretty dang good at it, going as far as essentially controlling Orre's biggest city with these Shadowmon. But one day, along came a spider named Wes and went up the water spout and blew it the heck up. That's how this game starts. In addition to that, he also stole a device that lets him capture other people's Pokemon known as a snag machine. Colosseum then plays out and ends with Wes essentially beating and dismantling Team Snag'em and going on the hunt for the rest of Team Cypher and their Shadow Pokemon. 5 years later in XD, we see he's not doing too great of a job at that, as Cypher's back, once again going for world domination. Now it's up to a much less cooler protagonist in Michael, a kid who does basically the same things as Wes, but with a good deal less edge. He is successful in disbanding Cypher though, so there's that. Oh, and like I mentioned before, while he's doing this, Pokemon start to show back up in Orre. TLDR, bad teams are doing bad things until good guys show up and do good things. And then Pokemon show back up. So what does this have to do with the lack of Pokemon? Well, one theory has to do with how Orre itself is just too bad of an environment for Pokemon to exist. It's so bad, in fact, that there supposedly wasn't any food for Pokemon to eat, so they went to greener pastures. Despite there being green pastures on the map, and Pokemon existing in far harsher environments. But, alright, the support behind this is shown in that breaking news special where this absolute unit of a man says that the way to get wild Pokemon to show themselves is to just leave food out. And lo and behold, that works, when it's not Munchlax. But I'm gonna have to call BS on duking for a few reasons. Oh, also this guy's name is Duking. At least 2 of its native Pokemon, i.e. the ones that show back up in the Pokespots, don't eat the traditional form of food, being Aaron, who eats ore, something Orre should have tons of, and Surskit, who eats microorganisms in the water. So I don't think either of those are gonna have too much trouble. And if you stop to think about it a bit more, it wouldn't make sense for these guys to make a long exodus back into the region for at most, 10 slices of cheese? Some kind of pokey cheese wheel? Instead, it seems like the snacks are functioning more like the food in other games' safari zones, just keeping the Pokemon from running away long enough for you to sneak up on them and capture them. This idea is made even firmer by Duking when he says in order for the Pokemon to show itself, you have to not be there. And while this is certainly a game mechanic, everything is a game mechanic, so it still helps knock this theory down a few pegs. Another idea for this comes in XD, where there's an NPC in Pyrite Town who actually acknowledges the lack of wild Pokemon, an odd rarity in these games. They blame it on the environment again, but instead of just saying there's a lack of food, they say it's because it's too caustic for Pokemon to survive. And in case you missed out on that in chemistry class, when something is caustic, it means it's corrosive or burning due to some chemical reaction. Its only other definition is someone who's rough and abrasive in a scathing manner, which I don't really think is what she means. But, I mean, to be fair, what exactly she means is open to interpretation. It certainly sounds like they're talking about how some element in Orre was poisonous to Pokemon, like there's a nuclear fallout, and now it's just starting to clear up to the point where they can leave their vault. It is a bit weird it doesn't affect people too, but I mean, Pokemon are not people, so that's not out of the question. What does make this less likely though is the trainer-owned Pokemon in the game. Even 5 years before wild Pokemon came back, your Espeon and Umbreon had no problem out of their Pokeballs. So then what exactly is this NPC talking about? Well, my take on it is that they're referring to the last theory, and the most likely one in my opinion, that the actions of Cypher and Snag'em made Orre so bad, dangerous, and caustic to wild Pokemon because they were being captured and turned into shadow Pokemon. So they decided to leave, then be made a Shadowmon. As I mentioned before, Cypher, and to a lesser extent Snag'em, wanted to control the world through shadow Pokemon, getting any and all Pokemon for this, wild or otherwise. And well, the idea is that the wild Pokemon left because for like the first time in a Pokemon game, the evil team that actually wanted to do something bad was successful at it. And for a while too. It wasn't until one of their own decided to fight back and force them underground that they kinda stopped. Emphasis on the kinda. Here's a few points of evidence for this theory. First, obviously, if a group is scooping up your friends and turning them into fighting machines, a process that can and often does cause the Pokemon harm, then yeah, you'd nope the heck out of there. Only waiting to show back up once they stop being so prevalent, which lines up with the series of events we see in the game. It'd also help explain why the NPC calls the environment caustic. Also, it adds grounding to Duking's method on Pokespots. They won't show up if people are around, probably thanks to some evil team-induced PTSD, and have to be distracted by food like me when I'm bored. Oh hey, Triscuits. This to me is the most likely theory. And that's just insane. Like, multiple species were uprooted by these guys, and they changed the face of a region for years. So that's the power of an actually competent evil team, huh? I guess it's a good thing that the main character has been thwarting them every generation then. Them and their evil cars. Can't even say it with a straight face. But hey, thanks for watching. Let me know if you agree with this down below, or if you have another theory that you think might be causing it. I'd be excited to read some. And as always, I hope to catch you in the next one.